From the moment Caitlin Clark stepped into the WNBA, fans felt something changing in the air, something electric that could be sensed before it could be measured. Indiana Fever supporters knew it instantly. Caitlin was different. She wasn't simply the next collegiate star transitioning to the pros, she was the spark of a seismic shift that would rattle an entire league. And for those who doubted, dismissed, or mocked her impact, a new reality has now arrived with numbers so overwhelming, so impossible to deny, that even the loudest skeptics have finally gone quiet. Because a brand new report has confirmed what Indiana has been shouting all along. The Fever's social media valuation has exploded to an unbelievable $55 million, a number so massive it is more than 5 times higher than any other team in the league. And the reason behind that surge can be traced to 2 names that have completely reshaped modern women's basketball: Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. The report, released by Forbes in partnership with STN Digital and Zoom Analytics, pulled back the curtain on something the WNBA has never been forced to confront before: the true financial power of online influence. For years, franchises measured success using traditional metrics: attendance, ticket revenue, sponsorship deals, limited national broadcasts, and whatever scraps of mainstream media attention they could gather. That model made sense for an era when digital visibility was little more than a novelty. But the world has changed, and those who failed to adapt were left clinging to outdated narratives. Suddenly, the Fever's online activity was no longer just impressive, it was quantifiable, traceable, and monetizable. And when the calculations were finished, the figures were staggering. Indiana wasn't leading the league. They were lapping it. Across the 2025 season, the Fever generated more than 38 million engagements and over 1.1 billion impressions. Numbers that stretch far beyond basketball and into territory normally reserved for global sports giants. By comparison, the Dallas Wings, who held the second highest valuation, recorded just over $8 million in social value. From 55 million down to 8.6, that wasn't a gap. It was an obliteration, a digital landslide that rewrote everything the league thought it knew about influence. Executives from across the WNBA stared at the numbers in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. No team in WNBA history had ever dominated the culture this way, much less a franchise that just a few seasons ago was overlooked, underestimated, and largely ignored outside Indiana. But here they were, soaring past every competitor and rewriting the economics of the sport in real time. The old guard had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham had created a force the league could no longer control. Caitlin Clark's effect on the digital landscape didn't need an introduction, not when every clip she touched turned to viral gold. From her first practice in a Fever jersey, millions of eyes followed every move she made. The simple act of her walking into the tunnel before a game could generate more engagement than an entire weekend slate of WNBA broadcasts. She had cracked the code that many athletes chase but few understand: authenticity. Fans weren't following Caitlin just because she was talented. They followed her because they felt connected to her. She celebrated her teammates like family, engaged with kids after games, played with emotion, and never tried to be anything other than herself. That kind of sincerity built loyalty that numbers long ignored. Her post-game interviews drew millions of views. Training footage went viral overnight. Even everyday interactions, high fives, hugs, casual gym conversations, became social media sensations. Analysts quickly labeled it the Caitlin Clark effect. But even that didn't tell the full story. For behind the highlights and headlines was another transformative presence, one the league never expected: Sophie Cunningham. If Caitlin was the face of the Fever's rise, Sophie was its spark, its personality, and its pulse. Once regarded as a fierce role player with sharp elbows and a fiery edge, Sophie reinvented herself into one of the most magnetic personalities in modern women's basketball. She understood the power of storytelling, of humor, of connection. Every post felt genuine. Every interview felt real. She didn't speak like a polished media product. She spoke like someone fans could relate to, someone they could root for, someone they trusted. Her search rankings on Google skyrocketed. Her clips, whether celebratory or emotional or pure chaos, pulled millions of views. Brands started calling, recognizing that her charisma was a marketing asset in its own right. Endorsements with Arby's and lifestyle companies followed, solidifying her as more than just a player. She was becoming a cultural figure, a personality fans looked for even when games weren't being played. Together, Caitlin and Sophie formed the WNBA's most compelling duo. Their chemistry, on court or off, joking in practice or celebrating wins, never felt forced. Clips of them laughing together, supporting each other, or hyping each other up transformed from simple team content into viral moments that fans shared on repeat. They became symbols of authenticity, unity, and joy, qualities no marketing department could manufacture. The Fever weren't just building a team. They were building a story, and fans wanted to be part of it. Inside WNBA headquarters, however, that story wasn't received with universal excitement. Instead, a quiet panic began to spread. Franchises across the league understood the implications immediately. If one team could generate this much attention, this much value, what did that say about the rest of the league? And what would happen if all that value depended on a single rookie who wasn't just elevating her own team's visibility but carrying the entire league on her back? Rival teams felt the pressure too. Historically dominant franchises like the Las Vegas Aces and the Chicago Sky suddenly found themselves struggling to keep up. Not because their stars weren't talented or their cities weren't supportive, but because digital culture had shifted, and they weren't part of the wave. Jealousy began bubbling in locker rooms. Subtle comments appeared in interviews. Some players dismissed Caitlyn's attention as media-manufactured hype. Others accused networks of favoritism. But the data didn't care about feelings. It showed exactly what fans were engaging with, and the numbers were undeniable. One Indiana Fever YouTube video alone was valued at $733,000. A single upload, nearly worth $750,000. Not a season's worth of content. Not a campaign. One video. That shattered every expectation for what WNBA media could be. Suddenly, Indiana wasn't just competing in the WNBA's digital landscape. They were pioneering a new frontier entirely. Fever content spread everywhere. Reaction channels on YouTube dissected plays and analyzed Caitlyn's impact. NBA fan communities, long indifferent to the WNBA, suddenly found themselves discussing Indiana highlights. The Fever weren't just breaking into mainstream spaces, they were owning them. Comment sections filled with messages from fans across the globe saying the same thing. They had never followed the WNBA before Caitlyn and Sophie. This wasn't manufactured influence. It wasn't bought. It wasn't forced. It was organic, emotional, and pure, exactly what modern audiences resonate with most. And that authenticity translated into financial value, the kind of value the league had never been able to tap into until now. But while Indiana soared, Chicago faced an uncomfortable reality. Angel Reese, one of the most popular athletes of her generation, had seemed like a surefire candidate to dominate. Digital rankings. Her presence off the court, fashion, endorsements, celebrity connections, was enormous. Her following was massive. On paper, she should have been the league's most marketable star. Yet when the new valuation report dropped, the Sky ranked only 5th, bringing in just over $6 million. That was nearly $50 million less than Indiana. The gap wasn't just surprising, it was humiliating. Angel still pulled viral traffic, but individual popularity didn't convert into team value the way Indiana's content did. That was the uncomfortable truth teams around the league had to face. The Fever weren't succeeding because of hype or clicks or controversy. They succeeded because they built a connection, with storytelling, emotion, and identity. Fans weren't tuning in for a moment. They were tuning in for a movement, and that difference made all the difference. Executives scrambled to copy the Fever's strategy. They hired digital specialists, launched new social campaigns, and tried to replicate the formula. But what they didn't understand was that the formula wasn't something you could simply steal. The Fever's success wasn't born from analytics, it was born from authenticity. Caitlyn brought the spotlight. Sophie brought the soul. Together, they created something that could not be manufactured in a boardroom. And while the rest of the league worked overtime to catch up, Indiana surged ahead. Ticket sales skyrocketed. Merchandise sold out within hours. Prime broadcast coverage shifted toward Fever games. The Fever weren't just the most watched team in the WNBA, they were the most profitable. And that profit raised an uncomfortable question. Could the league survive long-term if its financial destiny rested disproportionately on the shoulders of two players? Behind closed doors, WNBA executives debated it endlessly. What would happen if Caitlyn Clark missed significant time due to injury? What would happen when her contract renegotiations began? What leverage would she hold if she alone accounted for the league's digital lifeblood? And what did it mean that a single franchise was carrying so much weight? Those questions weren't hypothetical. They were urgent, and they revealed something the league had hidden for years. The WNBA's marketing infrastructure was failing long before Caitlyn arrived. She didn't create the imbalance. She exposed it. Still, even amid the panic, one thing was crystal clear. the Fever had uncovered the future. They weren't just winning games, they were rewriting the business of women's basketball. For decades, the WNBA fought to be treated seriously by networks, sponsors, and media outlets that didn't understand the true value of its athletes. Caitlin and Sophie didn't wait for approval. They generated it themselves, leveraging digital reach into financial power. $55 million in online value wasn't just a strong season. It was a declaration. It was proof that storytelling, authenticity, and real connection could revolutionize a sport the same way athletic dominance could. And that revolution was only just beginning. The Indiana Fever's meteoric rise wasn't an accident, a fluke, or a temporary trend. It was the natural result of two players who understood the modern world better than their competitors, who embraced transparency, who built community, and who transformed a franchise into a phenomenon. Caitlin Clark brought global attention. Sophie Cunningham turned that attention into loyalty. Together they built something the WNBA can no longer ignore, a digital empire with real financial power, real influence, and real sustainability. They didn't just elevate the Fever. They exposed the league's weaknesses, rewrote its future, and proved that in the modern sports landscape, attention is currency, and those who know how to earn it control the game. And now, as the dust settles and the numbers continue to rise, one truth stands above everything else. The Fever didn't just win the digital race. They changed the definition of value in women's basketball forever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Fever's rise and the Caitlin and Sophie era that's reshaping the league, let me know your thoughts. Is this dominance good for the WNBA? Can other teams catch up? And what does the future look like for Indiana as their influence keeps growing? Drop your opinions in the comments, and if you want more dramatic breakdowns like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding story.